welcome to the deep dive. You've pulled together some really fascinating material for us this time. We're looking at the artist Bob Camblin, kind of delving into his world through his own quotes, bits from books about him, and this interesting YouTube transcript.
That's right. And the goal here is to sort of unpack this figure, Bob Camblin. He's from Oklahoma, born way back in 1928.
I mean, he made this big shift, right? In '76, he just left academia behind.
Yeah, completely. Dedicated himself entirely to this nomadic life, focused purely on his art.
He gained a lot of recognition. His work is really sought after, but he himself kind of remained this elusive figure.
Oh, absolutely. The mystery seems almost intentional, part of the whole package. His body of work is huge, but it's scattered all over the place.
Yeah, that mystery really comes through in his quotes. They're often poetic, philosophical sometimes. Well, pretty cryptic.
So we'll try to dig into some of the themes that keep popping up, see if we can get a better handle on his worldview.
And we need to remember, these quotes didn't just appear in a vacuum. We've got biographical details too, right? We should weave those in.
Exactly. Understanding his life experiences, the things that influenced him, that gives crucial context, especially for those more obscure statements.
Okay. And then there's that YouTube piece, Rorschach, on the page. You pointed out how it really mirrors Camblin's own ideas about art and interpretation.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. The whole idea that meaning isn't just in the artwork, it's what we bring to it when we look. It's like Camblin was creating these visual Rorschach tests himself, in a way.
Interesting. Okay, so let's dive in, starting with the quotes. One theme that jumps out is time and how fleeting it is. He says things like, fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps.
Yeah. Even when he says forever, he immediately pulls it back.
And that line, sad how we all aged at that moment in time. There's a real sense of impermanence there. What does that tell us?
Well, I think it shows this incredibly sharp awareness he had of things constantly changing. Nothing's permanent.
Right.
And maybe that constant flux, that awareness, is part of what drove him to create so relentlessly, trying to capture something before it disappeared.
That makes sense. Like, art was his way of trying to pin down those moments.
Yeah.
Okay, another theme. Finding meaning in, well, unexpected places. He says, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic and you get what you need. And he throws philosophy and art in there too. Bridging science and magic.
Yeah.
What's that about?
It really points to his incredible curiosity, I think. He didn't see rigid boundaries between these things, science, magic, art, philosophy.
Like they all tap into something fundamental.
Exactly. He seemed to feel there was a connection, a shared source of insight, whether you approach it through scientific rigor or something more intuitive like magic. He was comfortable with ambiguity.
And he wasn't afraid of the gray areas either. He mentions wanting to enjoy miracles on both sides, science and magic, and hoping they meet in a bright gray.
Yeah, that rejection of black and white thinking is really interesting. He wasn't looking for answers only at the extremes.
He found value in the middle ground.
It seems so. That smear between the whiteness and the blackness, as he put it, that bright gray, it's like a metaphor for synthesis, isn't it? Bringing together the rational and the wondrous.
He also puts a lot of weight on intuition. That quote, the sixth sense is to be without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's so direct.
Very direct. Senza dubio, right? Without doubt. It really highlights how much he valued that gut feeling, that inner certainty that goes beyond just logic.
Which must be vital for an artist, making constant subjective choices.
Absolutely. Trusting those creative instincts.
You also see this tension in his words between being here on earth and the soul wanting something more. Bright day, and I soar, how cruel that my soul is attached to this earth, and yet.
Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? It captures that universal human feeling, being physical, grounded, but having aspirations that seem, well, limitless.
The cruelty is in that limitation.
That seems to be how he felt it. That gap between what we aspire to and the reality of being, stuck here on earth. It's a classic theme.
And he's pretty upfront about truth, especially self-truth. I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. And then connecting that to surrendering to nature.
It suggests a real commitment to self-honesty. But the for very long part is key too, isn't it?
Yeah, that makes it human, like it's the struggle.
Right. And linking it to nature. Maybe he found a kind of purity or honesty out there, away from human complexities.
When he talks about actually creating, he boils it down quite simply. The light is all you need. The end is to evolve by doing the best you can. The means is to amplify what you're doing and believe.
It's almost like a mini manifesto. The light that could be a literal light for painting or metaphorical, like
A
inspiration.
priority.
Yeah. And then just the focus on doing the work, evolving through effort, and having that belief in what you're doing. It's pretty solid advice for any creative person.
There are these moments where he seems to be grappling with balance and freedom simultaneously.
Yeah.
In the balance, patience, and yet. Freedom again, and yet. In silence, the reality can be maintained.
It feels layered. It really is. Patience and freedom. Maybe needing both. Knowing when to push and when to let go, perhaps in his art or just in life.
And finding reality in silence.
Suggests a need for introspection, maybe. And that bit about love turning to indifference for self-preservation. That's a pretty stark observation about relationships. Maybe a bit cynical, even.
Possibly. He also rethinks the whole purpose of art. He says, art is not just images. Art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
He's tracing an evolution there, isn't he? Moving from art as maybe a purely aesthetic thing.
There's something much more personal.
Yeah, or even essential. Like, art becomes a way to grapple with life itself, express your inner world, maybe even just cope. It gets woven into the fabric of living.
Which connects to that idea of stepping outside linear thinking. Step off the train of thought, to find the power that is no power, to do the work that is not work. It sounds very Zen.
Absolutely. That's classic Eastern philosophy right there. Getting beyond rigid logic to tack into something deeper, more intuitive.
Power that is no power. Work that is not work.
It suggests finding strength in yielding, achieving a state of flow. And that distinction, bending is not bowing. That's about being flexible without compromising your core self.
And then there's that really blunt advice. When you think, don't act. When you act, don't think.
Huh. It's paradoxical, but it makes sense. It's about focus, isn't it? Be fully in the thinking phase or fully in the doing phase. Don't muddy the waters by trying to do both at once.
He definitely had a poet's way of seeing things. The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves. Just lovely.
It really is, that personification, feeling that connection between himself and the universe through something as simple as moving leaves. It shows a deep sensitivity.
And sometimes he hints at these really profound joys, but vaguely. There is one joy that exceeds all other, and that's all I'll say.
The mystery again. By not saying what it is, he kind of invites you to ponder what your ultimate joy might be. It suggests something maybe too personal or too big for words.
He was also tuned into really subtle perceptions. Not a leaf moves, and yet we all feel the cool breeze.
Yeah, it's about those shared feelings, those things we sense beyond the purely visual. That interconnectedness again.
And you get a sense of his frustration with words sometimes, maybe. Much better than arguing is to look at my watercolor palette.
Huh. That's great. Like, the colors, the potential on the palette holds more truth or solace for him than getting tangled up in arguments.
He even plays with basic physics. White is light, black is absence of light, but people are seen.
It's clever, right? Technically, black is no light, but we still perceive people in shadow. It hints that human perception is more complex than just light hitting the eye.
And he could be quite charmingly whimsical, talking to Mother Nature. Well, that's enough about me, Mother Nature. Let's talk about you. What did you think of my last picture?
It shows that deep, familiar relationship he felt with the natural world, almost like a collaborator or at least someone he checks in with. It's quite endearing.
He had some really sharp, funny takes on arguments, too, like how to end one with a pessimist versus an optimist.
Yeah, those are insightful. Shows a keen eye for human psychology.
And that question, as people move away from us, do they diminish in our eyes or mind or relativity? He's playing with physics and perception and emotion all at once.
Exactly. It's philosophical, but also kind of playful. How does distance change our view, physically and mentally? It's a great question.
And the simple irony of, my attempts to stop arguing created an argument.
So relatable. Sometimes trying to fix things just stirs them up more, the paradox of intervention.
He also makes this really important distinction. If you argue or if you agree, you may learn, but you do not communicate.
That's deep. Learning might happen in debate, but true communication, that deeper understanding, that requires something else entirely, maybe empathy.
Perhaps. There's that beautiful quote about the artistic search. The gate stays open, the fence is broken, he keeps searching, but does not know the size of his quarry, yet he has faith.
It captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? The uncertainty, the lack of clear boundaries, but the absolute necessity of continuing the search, driven by faith, and wanting to see all around all at once, that longing for total vision.
His view on change is interesting too. Revolution leads to changes. Evolution is change. He sees revolution as based on misunderstanding, while evolution is understanding.
Right. He contrasts sudden upheaval with gradual, organic growth, and he thinks real balance comes from within, individually first, maybe collectively later. It's a thoughtful take on societal versus personal transformation.
And sometimes it's just simple wisdom. You never miss the water until the wells run dry.
Classic. A reminder to appreciate things while we have them. Can't argue with that.
He often used these really short, haiku-like verses, too, capturing little moments, starlings on bare branches, clouds around a tower.
Yeah, those show his incredible eye for detail and his ability to distill an image or feeling into just a few words. You can really see the influence of Japanese forms there that focus on the essence of a moment.
And he connects the personal to the universal so well. Poor fish, trapped by the changing tides, so much like us.
It's such a simple observation, but so poignant. Seeing our own vulnerability, our own feeling of being caught by larger forces reflected in nature.
He even gets whimsical about reincarnation, saying it wouldn't be bad to be a fly if it shone like that in the sun.
Huh. It's just another example of his unique perspective, finding beauty and wonder in unexpected places, even in a fly.
And his artist's eye is always on. Darning needles become shimmerline tapestries, summer light is calligraphy. He's
Okay.
constantly translating the world visually.
He really saw the art in things, didn't he? Not just looking, but actively perceiving the patterns, the textures, the light transforming the mundane.
And you get these bursts of pure surrealism, like that line, Eater of Christians, Chimera Byzantium, warm, cold children's chair, like fragments of a dream.
Definitely feels like tapping into the subconscious there. Those juxtapositions, they don't make logical sense, which forces you into a more intuitive way of reading them.
And those snapshot verses, like the fragile grayed lady, sidewise hasty retreat, little frozen narratives.
Exactly, they hint at a whole story in just a couple of lines. You're invited to fill in the gaps.
He uses sound, too, to bring places alive. Chalk, chalk, water tongue, chalk, chalk, sound of foot to scone, this marble island.
Really effective. Those sensory details, especially the sound, they immerse you right there. You can almost hear it.
His landscape metaphors are striking. Veil of August's heat weaves the artist dragonfly. Banyan trees are flat.
Beautiful imagery. Heat as a veil woven by a dragonfly that captures that hazy summer feeling perfectly. And then the unexpected banyan trees are flat makes you stop and think, how is he seeing them?
And the myths appear too. Fall, wax and feathers. Ra, Icarus adds another layer.
Right, invoking Icarus immediately brings in themes of ambition, hubris, the fall. It adds historical and symbolic depth to a simple image.
He often seems to be just observing, like with the sandpiper.
Oh, Sandpiper, why do you dance at ocean's edge? Come, the water's fine.
It's like he's having a little conversation with a bird. Shows that empathy, that connection he felt with the natural world, and contrasts. Summer, great black waves. Oh, men pulling nets. Nature's power and human effort side by side.
Creates a real dynamic tension in just a few lines. That phrase, one sees so seldom, clearly, suggests a moment of sharp, heightened perception.
His impressions of places can be so evocative. Ah, purple canals, golden palazzi, the rain muffles her crying, like a melancholic postcard.
Yeah, the colors, the sounds, the hint of sadness, it creates a very specific mood, a strong sense of place.
And memory and loss come through simply. Along on longboat, memory of summer walks. I hear this is gone.
It's that bittersweet feeling, isn't it? How vivid memories can be, even when the reality is lost. The longboat itself feels like a journey through time.
He even doubts his own seeing sometimes. The painted eye sees more than mine, and goddammit, I see nothing yet.
That's incredibly honest, that frustration, maybe feeling that art can capture something deeper than direct perception sometimes. The yet is hopeful, though.
And pure delight in the abstract. This strange device, whirled by a figure of my mind, a beautiful dance, celebrating inner vision.
Yeah, finding beauty just in the mind's creations, imagination as its own source of wonder.
He found humor everywhere, even gargoyles. Gargoyles gargling water. You missed me that time.
It's that playful interaction again, seeing personality in inanimate objects.
And the past echoing in the present. Off the shore, fragments of a memory are found, bones of Icarus. That myth again, but now as broken remnants.
It links back, showing how these myths persist, like fragments washed ashore, reminders of past ambitions and falls.
He captures sensory transformations too. Hammock facing west. Fingers knit to block the sun become burning twigs. You can almost feel that intense heat.
It's such a visceral image. How a simple sensation filtered through the mind becomes something else, something more intense, shows the power of perception.
He had unconventional ideas about memory too, didn't he? Comparing nostalgia to guests who overstay and dredging memory to stir up archetypes in the reptilian brain.
Yeah, it's a unique take. Suggests memory isn't just about recalling events, but about tapping into something deeper, more primal within us.
And he made that bold statement. The artist today is the only free agent. He's not committed, except so much as he desires it.
It's a strong declaration of artistic independence, right? Driven by inner motivation, not external demands.
He even touched on participatory art, which seems quite ahead of its time.
Shows he was thinking about how art engages people, maybe blurring the lines between creator and audience.
His ideas on belief are powerful. Religion, belief. If I believe it's art, then it is. Subjectivity rules.
Yeah, he really explores how much our reality is shaped by what we choose to believe, whether it's ghosts or art or even our own sense of self.
But he also saw the downsides, right? Faith, discipline, communication, they could help or hinder.
Exactly, a balanced view. Things that seem positive can become obstacles if they're rigid or misused. Need for discernment.
And he equates art and love as things you have to experience. Love, art if experienced, no description is necessary. Though he warns against mistaking pleasure for the real thing.
Emphasizes direct experience over intellectual understanding. But with that realistic caution, don't confuse the fleeting feeling with the deep reality.
That figure 4, quote, resist and submit, held in perfect balance, followed by those cryptic verses. It feels very personal, almost coded.
Definitely enigmatic. Hints at his own system for understanding these opposing forces: struggle, release, traps, escape. The mention of infinity just adds to the mystery.
And the idea that when understood, all truth is funny. What do you make of that?
Maybe it suggests that with deep understanding comes a kind of lightness, seeing the underlying absurdity maybe, and being able to approach it with humor, detachment.
He strongly advises against getting caught in being right, urging us to flow and step off the train of thought.
Reinforces that theme of presence, intuition over rigid analysis. Obsessing about being right kills spontaneity, doesn't it? Stepping off the train is about liberation.
He had a pretty dim view of historians romanticizing artistic madness after the fact.
Yeah, a sharp critique. Glorifying struggles in hindsight while maybe ignoring the artist during their lifetime.
But he also offered this hopeful idea. We can train ourselves to open instead of close the circuits of perception.
That's empowering, isn't it? Suggests our perception isn't fixed. We can choose to be more open, more receptive, and see more.
He differentiates believing from knowing, suggesting mystics operate on a level beyond logic, but still needing a balance.
Right. Belief might be based on faith, but knowing comes from that deeper, direct experience, which might not always be logical, need both intuition and reason.
He saw history as needing a creative element to be believable, awareness softening shock, familiarity enabling participation, creativity allowing transcendence. Lots packed in there.
Shows how he thought about our engagement with past and present. History isn't just facts, it's narrative. Awareness helps us cope. Creativity lets us break free.
And he called cynicism creativity gone destructive and ego-oriented. Pretty harsh.
A powerful framing, not just lack of creativity, but a misuse of it, driven by ego and negativity.
He felt we lose magic by trying too hard to understand everything intellectually instead of just knowing it.
Echoes that earlier point. Overanalysis can kill the wonder that comes from direct intuitive experience.
He compared the effort of creation to small things accumulating, like a tree growing, emphasizing persistence.
A great analogy. Big achievements often come from consistent, small efforts over time, not just sudden flashes of inspiration.
And he framed basic things, drawing, teaching, searching in paradox, hinting at their hidden complexities.
Invites us to look deeper, doesn't it? To see the contradictions inherent in even these fundamental activities.
He really argued for a return to a more naive approach to art, free from the seduction of history critics. He seemed fed up with the art world reducing things to labels.
A passionate plea for authenticity, wasn't it? Rejecting external pressures, seeking a more genuine, less mediated form of expression.
And that famous line about the critic, a legless man who teaches running. Ouch.
Huh. Concise and brutal, clearly shows his skepticism about the value of criticism from those who don't actually do the thing.
He felt the urge to make marks was primal, maybe even predating weapons, connecting it to childhood joy and the power of the nonverbal.
Points to that fundamental human need for visual expression. something deeper than language.
But he was wary of forced intention in art, thinking it led to focusing on quantity over quality.
A concern about the production mentality creeping in. That output might overshadow substance if the intention isn't genuine.
That idea of artists guiding historians like adults hiding Easter eggs? Intriguing.
Playful, but suggests artists embed meanings that historians then uncover, a kind of collaborative discovery across time.
And comparing facility to the Midas, touch a gift that can also be a curse.
Right, skill is crucial, but if it's just skill without depth, it can become hollow, detrimental, like Midas turning his food to gold.
He wondered if empty art led to more critical effort to fill the void. A bit cynical.
Provocative, certainly. Suggests maybe complex interpretations sometimes mask a lack of inherent substance in the work itself.
And observing the visual arts becoming non-visual, thinking about conceptual art taking over.
Likely. Reflects that shift where the idea behind the art sometimes becomes more central than the purely visual experience.
His definition of zazen, the aimless mind focusing itself, captures that paradox beautifully.
Really concise, how letting go of deliberate effort can paradoxically lead to focus and clarity.
He urged artists to play the game of art without fear, even something seemingly harmless like drawing.
A call for creative freedom, right? Less self-censorship, more playful exploration, especially early on.
And he broke down different types of drawing for action, analysis, concept, showing its versatility as a tool for inquiry.
Yeah, emphasizes how drawing isn't just one thing. It can be used to explore materials, the world, or the mind in very different ways.
He kept stressing the nonverbal aspects of drawing and concepts, communication beyond words.
Reinforces that core idea that art speaks on a sensory, intuitive level that language often can't reach.
And his take on haiku, simple idea, greater reaction, captures its essence.
Exactly, that power of minimalism evoking so much from so little.
He advised finding your own mystic switch, that personal sense of truth, knowing it can change over time.
Highlights the personal, evolving nature of intuition. Trusting your inner compass, but knowing it might recalibrate as you grow.
And the difference between looking and seeing, learning through failure, process is non-failure.
Valuable lessons. Active engagement is key. Mistakes are learning. The journey, the process itself, holds the value, not just the outcome.
He saw writing's origins in the nonverbal, syntax-limiting, nonlinear thought, and argued against one right way to draw, advocating for recreate recreation.
Insightful about language's limits, and that call for recreate is about liberation, joy, personal expression over rigid rules.
He described how passive activities could let the zazen mind work, bringing hunches and solutions during play, warning against trying too hard.
Articulates that benefit of a relaxed state for creativity. Don't force it. Let insights emerge naturally.
And resisting rote learning, embracing failure, relaxation, feeling, thinking for oneself, leading to knowing more without learning anything new.
A powerful case for experiential knowledge over academic learning. Build resilience, trust feelings, think critically, that's real understanding.
He thought the ultimate fear was fear of oneself.
A profound point. Our own inner doubts and shadows are often the biggest hurdles.
And that Zen idea. We're already Buddha, but forget it. Knowing versus knowing it.
The difference between intellectual understanding and deep lived realization. Crucial distinction.
Mirrors is magic, but the real magic is realizing everyone is one.
Moves from surface trick to deep insight about interconnectedness, unity.
The jump, the unknowingness of the familiar fish in water, birds in air, highlights what we take for granted.
Makes you question the obvious, see the wonder in the everyday things we ignore.
He distinguished negative magic, power, from positive magic, seeing, and intellectual seeing, conventional art, from a deeper seeing connected to life's essence.
Values that intuitive, mystical perception that connects to fundamental truths beyond just cultural trends.
He saw real seeing as complex, a whirlpool, making any artwork just a partial retention of that richness.
Acknowledges the depth of true perception and the inherent limits of art in capturing it all.
And admitted art involves fooling the eye, and thus the mind.
Candid about the role of illusion and artifice, the artist's ability to play with perception.
He really grappled with the artist's dilemma, balancing skill and novelty in a culture with short attention spans, suggesting anonymity might offer freedom.
A sharp take on the pressures of the contemporary art world, constantly needing to be new yet skilled. Anonymity as escape is a radical thought.
He lamented the overpopularization of symbols like yin and yang, feeling their meaning got diluted,
A concern that deep symbols lose power through superficial overuse in pop culture.
and echoed the symbolists. Explaining something can kill its mystery.
That tension between analysis and just experiencing the evocative power of art, sometimes mystery is best left untouched.
Communication itself he saw as both wonderful and sad.
Acknowledges its power to connect, but also its limits, the potential for misunderstanding, a balanced view.
He hoped for diverse art forms driven by different intentions, not just one dominant style.
A desire for a pluralistic art world, valuing many different approaches and perspectives.
And stressed experience over mere knowledge, suggesting even shallow idioms might gain meaning later.
Underscores the power of direct experience and how art's impact can be unpredictable over time.
Those stark images of dryness and death, evocative, leaving you wondering about their symbolism.
Definitely. They create a mood, hint at themes of aridity, mortality, inviting interpretation.
He offered those principles for making the best of it. No mistakes, do your best, mistakes are learning. So positive.
Incredibly empowering, right? Reframing challenges, focusing on effort and growth, not perfection. Very self-compassionate.
And he flipped, pride goeth before a fall, exploring other links between pride and failure.
Playfully questioning conventional wisdom, suggesting the relationship is more complex than the simple proverb allows.
That metaphor of two parts of a hologram arguing instead of cooperating, great illustration of limited perspective.
Vividly shows the need for a holistic view, the problems that arise from fragmentation and lack of cooperation.
He noted the cycle of chaos and order.
The simple acknowledgement of that fundamental dynamic in the universe, the rhythm of existence.
And introduced the hologram, moving beyond shadows to clear understanding through togetherness. Optimistic.
Yeah, a hopeful vision emphasizes collective awareness, unity overcoming limited individual viewpoints.
Talked about approaching real time and its inevitability.
Suggests an awareness of the present, the relentless forward march of time.
He considered all those different views of the universe, finite, steady state, higher order, and even gave solipsists the benefit of the doubt, maybe just misunderstanding. Shows his breadth.
Impressive intellectual curiosity, willingness to entertain vastly different models of reality, even showing empathy for unconventional views.
And he connected historical awareness with living in past, present, future in our minds, saying our shared purpose is to dream of how it works and express ourselves authentically.
A really beautiful, expansive vision of humanity's place, emphasizes curiosity, self-expression, each contributing in our own way.
Time travel at the speed of enlightenment, what a phrase.
Evocative, isn't it? Suggests profound insight can transcend linear time.
He observed nature's rhythms, the hawk's freedom, the snake's patience, and noted how complex the path of least resistance is for conflicted humans.
Shows his close attention to nature, seeing different strategies for being, and acknowledging our own internal struggles make that path tricky for us.
That description of the way back, through silence, melting rocks, infinite space, eternal time, ending where it begins. Mystical.
A very poetic, cyclical vision of existence, dissolution and renewal, a constant becoming.
And that funny aside about Louis Sullivan's honor maybe ending up in a broom closet.
Injecting that bit of irreverent humor into the deep thoughts keeps it grounded.
Thinking about crutches, wooden and gold, the battle between futility and provocation, then embracing dolce far niente, carefree idleness, acceptance.
Seems like it. Reflecting on supports, struggles, and maybe finding peace and letting go, accepting a state of being rather than constant striving.
The frozen phoenix metaphor, trapped but holding potential for rebirth. Compelling.
Potent image, right. Captures that feeling of being stuck but knowing transformation is possible, waiting.
And the empty ribcage full of sand, yet finding meaning in the living process itself.
Poignant. Emphasizes that life's value is in the journey, the process, not some final state, even amidst feelings of emptiness.
Thinking about the universe's vast timescale, waiting for the magnificent pulse, puts things in perspective.
Absolutely. A humbling perspective, shrinking our immediate concerns against the backdrop of cosmic time.
Wow, okay, that's a lot just from the quotes. It feels like we're really getting a sense of his mind. Let's try to connect this to his life now, his early years in Ponca City, Oklahoma.
Right, born in 28. And those early influences seem key. The Marlin Estates grandeur, that pioneer woman statue.
Which had that personal link through his mother, Viva Camblin, the double VV symbol.
And even the Wizard of Oz, that mix of ambition, pioneer spirit, and fantasy seems to have stuck with him.
You can see how that blend, the ordinary and the extraordinary, local and universal, might have shaped his art. And that personal link to the statue makes it more intimate.
Definitely. Especially given your interest in how personal history shapes art, that connection probably stands out.
It does. Then there was his long friendship with Forrest Harrisberger, over 60 years.
Amazing. And apparently, Camblin was this huge reader, always thinking, but their bond was more about good vibes, drawing together.
Wasn't just intellectual.
Seems not. Highlights the importance of that basic human connection, shared experience. Probably a vital anchor for Camblin later in his more solitary life. Harrisberger noted how Camblin could draw brilliantly even while reading shows his multi-layered mind.
His Air Force time, sketching the California coast.
Maybe that ground
Visually.
Quite possibly. Those early representational skills, observing the real world, could have been a foundation before he moved into more abstract or conceptual work later on.
But the Fulbright in Italy, that sounds like a real game changer.
Oh, massively. Being mesmerized by the masters, Impressionism, Venice becoming his Emerald City.
And seeing the Uffizi treasures, but also the Capuchin catacombs, the mummies.
That contrast is key, I think. The sublime beauty and the macabre. It likely fueled his interest in both sides of existence, themes that run through his work.
And he directly referenced Botticelli later, right, in that Birth of Venus.
Yeah.
About the radio bombing and Flora with hidden images.
Yeah, showing how he engaged with art history but made it relevant to his own time, his own concerns. Italy clearly unlocked a lot for him.
He taught for a while, but then that big move in '76, becoming a full-time nomadic artist, that's a huge leap.
Speaks volumes about his commitment, doesn't it? Giving up stability for the uncertainty of just making art. Shows the intensity of his drive.
Yeah.
And those later travels just kept adding layers, new influences.
We know his drawings and musings from 1950 to '74 give this unfiltered look into his thoughts, stuff not meant for public eyes initially.
Exactly, which makes those quotes we discussed feel even more authentic, knowing their private origin. They're like the raw material for his public work.
It's been said his art aims to bypass criticism and speak directly to the viewer's soul. That's ambitious.
Suggests he wanted a visceral emotional connection, something beyond just intellectual analysis, art that hits you on a deeper level.
Critics did notice changes, though. Moser saw his drawing style shift, Fried noted the life cycle fascination, Texas Overview saw the drawing watercolor blend evolving. He wasn't static.
Definitely not. His career was constant evolution, experimenting with techniques, themes, moving between detail and expression.
Including that move from abstract impressionism to Muchas Volantes, those dot-dash illusions with Nancy Giordano, inspired by Dada and surrealism.
Shows his willingness to engage with the avant-garde, push boundaries. Could you maybe quickly unpack Dada and surrealism for folks who might not know them well?
Sure. Dada came out of WWI chaos, embracing absurdity, nonsense, anti-art almost. Surrealism followed, exploring dreams, the subconscious, the irrational, Camblin's optical tricks, playing with perception.
Yeah, you can see the connection. Challenging reality, making the viewer see differently, moving past just representation. That fits.
And his collaborations, B&E Productions, the holding firm, with Staley and Tate, challenging the idea of the lone genius artist, believing in anonymous artists.
That's pretty radical for the art world, submerging the ego, focusing on collective creation, questions that whole cult of the individual.
Even later, works like Big Al, Descent from the Cross, show his skill in continued use of symbolism. Always layers.
Right. Technical mastery alongside that commitment to embedding meaning, inviting deeper thought.
He clearly had a tricky relationship with the art game. Galleries, selling, refusing payment sometimes, wanting viewers to see the whole environment, not just isolated pieces.
Shows his strong convictions about artistic integrity, right?
Yeah.
Skeptical of commercial pressures, wanting a more holistic experience for the viewer.
That idea of turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones, the jars of water image, such a great metaphor for resilience.
Yeah, visually represents finding opportunity in difficulty, learning from setbacks, using them to move forward. Very powerful.
The Scarecrow series, inspired by Günter Grass's Dog Years, exploring metamorphosis and using text that might be misleading clues, shows his intellectual playfulness.
Exactly. It combines literary inspiration, deep themes like transformation, and that mischievous element of potential misdirection. Turns viewing into puzzle solving.
He really wanted the viewer involved, using those data problems, traps, or clues, and questioning reality like the surrealists, aiming to remake Goya in 20th century terms.
Wow. That's ambition. Engaging with a giant like Goya, but in a modern language. shows his historical awareness and desire to make impactful contemporary work, using puzzles and ambiguity forces that active engagement he wanted.
His early work tackled social protest, mixing social realism and non-objective styles, influenced by Cremoni, Etruscan figures, wide range from the start.
Shows he wasn't limited stylistically. Engaged with social issues, then explored more subjective, symbolic forms, willing to experiment to get his ideas across.
And even in big drawings, leaving corrections visible. Seems refreshingly unperfectionistic.
Suggests valuing the process, the journey of creation, over just a flawless end product. Shows authenticity.
In the 60s, trying to blend Hugo van der Gogh's poetry with Goya's emotion, consciously weaving influences.
Demonstrates a really sophisticated understanding of art history, deliberately synthesizing different sensibilities into his own vision.
Then that mystical turn in the 70s, invoking subjective states, exploring life cycles, metamorphoses, drawing on Freud, Grunewald, Kazantzakis, Grass, while still being playful. Complex guy.
The 70s were clearly a period of deep dive for him, psychological, existential themes pulling from everywhere, and that ability to mix seriousness and humor is really distinctive.
And the 80s, weaving, drawing, and watercolor, hiding images, making you look past the obvious, always challenging perception.
That technique perfectly mirrors his whole philosophy, doesn't it? Layering meaning, rewarding sustained looking, revealing things slowly over time.
It's amazing how it all connects: the quotes, the life events, the artistic shifts, creates this really rich picture. Okay, let's pivot to that YouTube transcript, Rorschach, on the page. It's such a good analogy for interpretation.
It really is. The way it starts with that accidental ink blot becoming Rorschach, it echoes Camblin's embrace of chance in his own process.
Right. Serendipity.
An openness to what emerges unexpectedly.
And then everyone sees something different in the blot, confusion, fireworks. It just screams subjectivity, which feels so relevant to Camblin's often ambiguous work.
Exactly. It's a perfect parallel. Just like the viewers project onto the ink blot, Camblin's art invites that personal projection. There's no single right answer. Meaning arises in that interaction between viewer and art.
What's cool is how the video weaves in quotes from Einstein, Buddha, Socrates, Plato, Seneca, while people are interpreting the blot. It elevates looking at a smudge into this philosophical exercise, mirroring the depth in Camblin's own quotes and the books about him.
Totally. It shows how even a simple visual can trigger deep thought, just like Camblin's often enigmatic pieces engage with complex ideas.
The idea that viewers see themselves in the blot resonates with Camblin's often personal, introspective work. It's not just about the artist, it's about you.
Precisely. The Rorschach video highlights the viewer's active role in making meaning. Camblin's work is similar. It's a catalyst for self-reflection, self-discovery.
The video also talks about how belief shapes reality, which seems key for approaching Camblin's ambiguity. If you believe you'll find meaning, you're more likely to.
Fits perfectly with Camblin's playful but profound style. He invites you to bring your imagination, your openness, to the interpretation.
And it stresses looking closely at small, accidental things. The unexamined blot is not worth leaving on a page. Reflects Camblin's detail, his hidden layers.
Encourages mindful looking, doesn't it? Seeing potential significance in the overlooked, which is definitely part of engaging with Camblin's art.
Talk of negative spaces. Seeing differently by changing perspective. That feels applicable too, for finding hidden things in his work. What's not there can be important.
Crucial point. Often the deeper meanings in Camblin only emerge when you shift your focus, look differently, consider the composition in a new way.
So the core takeaway from the video: meaning isn't in the image, it arises from perception. That feels like Camblin's philosophy in a nutshell. Active engagement, co-creation of meaning.
Absolutely. The Rorschach exercise underscores the power of individual interpretation, which seems central to Camblin's whole artistic intent.
And the result in the video, viewers resolving to see more carefully, maybe even becoming creative themselves. That aligns with Camblin's legacy, right? Provoking thought, sparking curiosity.
Suggests that engaging deeply with art, even an ink blot, can spark our own creativity, change how we see the world. That's inspiring.
The video's conclusion, the spirit of the ink blot, reminding us that life's meaning is in how we perceive and the stories we create. That's a perfect lens for Camblin's incomplete works.
Beautifully put. Meaning isn't fixed. It's constructed through our perspective, our interpretation. That's exactly the kind of engagement Camblin seems to invite.
Okay, let's quickly bring in some insights from those book reviews and forwards you shared. One review called his art "Questions Disguised as Images" and philosophy "Incomplete Answers." frames his work as this ongoing dialogue.
That's such an insightful way to put it. Highlights the open-ended nature of his art-provoking questions, not giving easy answers.
And the idea of him turning ordinary things, a figure-4 trap, a tattooed arm, a frog, into powerful symbols.
Showcases that talent for finding symbolic weight in the everyday, asking us to look beyond the literal.
His drawings described as paradoxes made visible, blueprints for ideas, pushing intellectual engagement.
Emphasizes the conceptual layers, doesn't it? They're meant to make you think, not just look.
Themes of illusion, impermanence, traps, fear, time, self-made, the ambiguity of stillness, all highlighted as connected concerns, echoing his quotes.
Reinforces the consistency of his core themes across his work. It all ties together.
One forward, brilliantly connected artistic movements like realism to abstract expressionism with philosophies like Zen and the I Ching. That gives amazing context for Camblin, blending abstraction and symbolism, like Zen's direct experience linking to expressionism and the I Ching's change linking to cubism and abstract expressionism. Fascinating framework.
That context is vital. Shows how he synthesized these seemingly disparate traditions, ancient wisdom, modern art, into his own unique language.
Art presented as a portal to heightened awareness, looking as ekphrastic dialogue, inspiring reflection, its active participation.
Emphasizes art's transformative potential, the viewer's role in creating meaning through that engagement.
The aim being intuitive understanding, not imposing truth. Viewers active participant, art and observer evolving together towards enlightenment. Brings us back to the Rorschach idea again.
Exactly. It reinforces that Camblin's art is a catalyst for personal discovery, not just a message transmitter.
He's consistently called iconoclastic, enigmatic, controversial style. Work is scarce, adding to the allure. Fits the mystery we started with.
Acknowledges his unique, challenging position. Willing to push buttons. And scarcity always adds intrigue, doesn't it?
We get that overview again. Early life, Kansas City Art Institute, Fulbright, teaching. Then the radical nomadic turn in '76. Useful timeline.
Helps frame his development, the key choices that shaped his unconventional path.
And that book, Zen and the Art of Enlightenment, focusing on those intimate 1950-74 drawings and musings, underscores their personal nature again.
Emphasizes the value of those private works for understanding his core intentions during that formative time.
Lastly, those quotes from people who knew him. Gershon, Staley, Serling, Farb, painting him as enigmatic, questioning, autobiographical, impactful.
Those personal accounts are invaluable, offer moving insights into his personality and the effect he had.
Earl Stay's account, especially their friendship, collaborations, Camblin's complex personality, leaving Houston, the enduring impact. Describing his late studio as a wizard's den.
Really brings him to life, doesn't it? Give that human dimension. And hints at the difficulties in fully grasping his later life and scattered work.
So wrapping this up, Bob Camblin clearly defied easy labels, embraced paradox, mystery, viewer engagement, his quotes, his art. They're this rich mix, philosophy, poetry, and deep curiosity about perception and reality.
Absolutely. He wasn't just making objects, he was creating prompts for contemplation, asking us to question our assumptions, explore with a more open mind.
We really hope this deep dive gave you, our listener, some interesting insights, those aha moments, without being too overwhelming. A shortcut to appreciating this fascinating artist.
And maybe sparked some curiosity to look further into his unique work and vision.
So here's a final thought to chew on. Considering Camblin's focus on hidden meanings and the viewer's active role, what scribbles or overlooked details in your own life might hold unexpected stories or insights if you just look at them differently? Maybe, like that figure emerging from the ink blot, something significant is just waiting for your unique interpretation. Thanks for diving deep with us.